New Year's Day is probably the only day of the year that every country and culture celebrates. There are so many different traditions for bringing in the new year. In fact, even in the same country, people celebrate in different ways. This New Year's, I want to highlight one of the Greek traditions, focusing on the Greek Vasilopita New Year's cake. It's actually a family celebration of the death of Saint Basil, which coincidentally is on New Year's Day. Nevertheless, the fun family event of cutting into the cake to find the hidden treasure makes for an exciting event and a joyous act for bringing in the new year. Traditionally, many Greeks bring in the new year eating a Vasilopita, which means Saint Basil's bread. This cake or bread, depending on the region of Greece, is eaten on the day of Saint Basil's death. Every January 1st, Greek families honor Saint Basil by cutting into a special pita, meaning bread, cake, or pie. The sweetness in the cake or bread symbolizes hope for the coming year to be filled with life, liberty, health, and happiness for all who participate in the Vasilopita observance. The most important part of Vasilopita is the lucky coin baked in the cake. The lucky person to receive the slice with the coin is thought to have 1 year of good luck and blessings. Ultimately, the cake serves as a reminder of what Saint Basil did for Greece and the early Greek Orthodox Church. There are several legends that describe the history behind this cake. One of them suggests that Saint Basil, who was a bishop, wanted to distribute money to the poor in the churches he served. To preserve their dignity, though, he cleverly devised a plan so no one would feel pitied. He sought the assistance of local women to bake sweetened bread. He gave them gold coins to place in each loaf prior to baking. Then each family received a loaf. As the families cut into the bread, they were pleasantly surprised to find the coins. In honor of our Greek friends, today we are making a Vasilopita. The version I'm sharing with you is a cake instead of a bread, but either one is traditional. In addition, I'll show you how to prepare and insert the coin and provide you with the rules for cutting and serving the cake along with finding the coin. I want to thank our Greek friends for the inspiration of my Vasilopita cake recipe. For the ingredients, yay, we're ready. You'll need all-purpose flour, baking powder, salt, ground nutmeg, orange zest and juice of half of the orange, butter, granulated sugar, vanilla, milk, eggs, 1 coin, gold color is traditional and it's wrapped in foil, and powdered sugar. The best way I know to describe this cake is that it's a cross between a bread and a cake. It doesn't have that typical glutinous stretch as bread, but it also is not as light as cake. It's reminiscent of a pound cake with orange and nutmeg nuances. Since the batter comes together very quickly and we can get in the oven sooner than later, let's go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And you're gonna need a 10-inch round cake pan. I'm using a springform pan, but it could just be a round cake pan. And you're going to grease the bottom of it. I just like to take butter and just rub it the bottom and on the sides really well. Once your pan is greased, I used a pencil outline my bowl. I'm gonna turn the pencil lead side down and just place the round at the bottom of my cake pan, just so it helps to make the cake come out easily when we're ready to release it. And it fits in there really well when you have butter for it to adhere to. If you're using a springform pan, I highly recommend you surround the bottom in foil, because this batter could theoretically, potentially ooze out at the bottom of the cake pan, and I find it makes it just easier if you have something to kind of keep it all in together and you don't want to really have burned spots coming out of your cake pan. So I'll just like to wrap the bottom in foil as such, and now we're ready to make the cake. In a medium bowl, you're going to sift in 420 grams of flour, which I've measured out already, and that equals 3½ cups. Just sift it in so that we've got this light flour. To the flour, we're going to add 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground nutmeg, or ground nutmeg, whatever you have. And then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of packed orange zest. I just used 1 full big navel orange and just used all of the zest from that. We just whisk it all together and then we'll just set it aside. In the bowl of a stand mixer, we're gonna have to whip up the butter and the sugar. You need 8 ounces, which is 2 sticks of softened butter. If you forgot to leave your butter out, just heat in the microwave for 10 to 15 seconds, preferably diced first so that it softens more easily. Add that to your mixer. And we wanna whip this butter up first before we do anything else. Notice how smooth it is now. While the machine is running on low, just make sure it's on low or else you'll have food flying everywhere. We're gonna slowly add in 400 grams of sugar, and that is 2 cups. Once we have all the sugar in, we're gonna let the machine continue to run until very smooth, pale, light, and fluffy. You can increase the speed, particularly once you add it all in the sugar. This could take a couple of minutes until it's the right color and texture. Our butter is light and pale. At this point, if you haven't already, you need to separate your 5 eggs. You need a bowl with just the yolks and a bowl with the whites. We're gonna whip the whites by themselves in a minute. But first, we're gonna add the egg yolks one at a time with the machine on low. You could just, once you've separated them, if you get 2 in, it's all right, it's no big deal. Just mix well between each addition. Okay, with the machine on low, we're gonna add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then I squeezed 2 tablespoons of orange juice from half of that navel orange that we zested from earlier. And then I'm just gonna pour that in. Along the way, be sure to scrape down the edges of the bowl. Look how light and fluffy that butter and sugar and egg. With the machine on low, we're gonna alternate adding flour and milk. You're gonna need 8 ounces, which is 1 cup of milk. So here's how I found the easiest way to do all this to get it relatively equally dispersed is start with a 1/2 cup of flour mixture. Slowly add it in with your mixer on low. If you're doing this by hand, you can just stir all this together. Just again, alternating flour and milk. Start with the flour and you want to end with the flour. Then add between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of milk. So I'm adding my last alternating milk and flour. The reason we alternate the milk and the flour in the cake is that we want to make sure that we give the liquid plenty of time for the flour to soak it in and for the flour plenty of time and opportunity to soak in the liquid. The reason we start and end with the flour is because we want to make sure that we end with the dry ingredients so our batter isn't wet. This is the last bit of our flour. Again, the mixture has been going and it's been on low. Let's take a look at what we have here. It's a pretty batter. Looks like a pound cake. Okay, scrape down those edges. Notice how light that is. It's a really light batter. I like that. It's a pretty batter. Okay, we are done with our paddle. So you can go ahead and remove that. All right, we're gonna set the batter that we currently have aside for right now. We're gonna take those egg whites and we're gonna mix them with a hand mixer until they are soft peaks. You know you're close to soft peaks when your mixer is leaving trails in the whites, and then when you stop and you lift it up and you get a curl at the top, then you're at the soft peak stage, which is where we are. Beating the egg whites like we did is just gonna give our cake a little bit of lightness when it bakes. Just carefully scoop those egg whites into your batter. Fold the egg whites in. So your folding is like a figure-8 pattern. You do the same thing if you make a meringue or if you make like macarons. But all you have to do is just go around the bowl with your spoon or spatula, cut through it, and then fold it over. You want to make sure if you're using a big tall bowl like this that you get the bottom and make sure that you whip up that batter that's hanging out the bottom, or else you won't have any of that light egg white in your batter that's hanging out the bottom. All of our egg whites have been folded in. We want to make sure we keep that white fluff, so that's why we aren't stirring this. And look at the bottom. We've got all the bottom of the batters all mixed in as well. All right, now it's time to add it to the pan. A lot of times when I bake, I like to place my, particularly with cakes, is place my baking cake pan on a cookie sheet. You just want to scoop your batter into it. Okay, once you have the batter in the pan, smooth the batter out. Now you do not want to use a smaller pan than a 10-inch pan here because this cake will rise, it's going to rise above the pan. Now this is where we actually put the coin in. So you could do this a couple of different ways with the coin. You first want to wash and clean your coin because naturally money is dirty. So I've already washed my coin. I'm using a 10-cent euro, which is comparable to about 15 cents in the US, but Greece uses the euro, so I have euros for my travels. So I'm just using one of those. Gold is traditional, silver is fine. Once you clean it, you want to wrap it well in foil. You want a small little piece of foil, just enough to cover it up. The reason I like to wrap mine in foil is because I don't want the metal, the dirty money, to be in our food, right? Whoever finds the coin will have to unwrap it themselves, but honestly, that's their prerogative if they want the coin. Okay, so just wrap it really, really well. Make sure the foil is sticking out because we don't want it to break off into our cake, okay? Then find a place where you want to put it. It's likely going to sink to the bottom after you put it in, and you'll be able to see it once it's baked. Once you place it in there, just cover it up. You don't have to push it in deep because it's going to sink anyway. Our Vasilopita cake is ready for the oven. So, since the oven is preheated, carefully just place it on the center rack. And you're going to bake for an hour to an hour and 10 minutes. The cake is done when a toothpick inserted in the center, or actually a spaghetti stick because the toothpick is likely going to be too small. So I'll use a spaghetti stick. Put it in the center. If it comes out clean, your cake is done. Cake is baked. It's just come out of the oven. We need to let it sit in the pan for 10 minutes. Let it cool slightly. So now that the cake has cooled a bit, we just simply want to remove it from the pan. If you're using a regular 10-inch pan without it being springform, then just run a knife around the inside of the pan and the cake should come out pretty easily. If you're using a springform pan, then you've got that little buckle on the side. When you loosen it, the sides come right off. So that's actually pretty handy to have a springform pan, and you probably have one if you like to make a lot of cheesecakes. All right, so the bottom of mine is still warm, so I'm just gonna leave the bottom of it on the cake at the moment, and I'm just gonna transfer it over to a wire rack. The cake needs to cool completely before we add the powdered sugar. Now that our cake is completely cooled, we can transfer it to a serving platter if you want. And I want to show you something. I've already removed the bottom from mine. It was easy. It just came right off. The paper came right off. But I wanted to show you, do you see that little light colored area right there? That's the coin. So if you want, and I remember I told you it'll sink, if you have a little kid in your family that you really want to have the coin, just remember where it is when you place, in fact I can feel it with my finger there, when you place it on the serving platter, just sort of remember where it is on the platter, and then when you cut, then you can give that particular kid the coin if you really wanted to. So at this point, we just need to add a thick layer of powdered sugar on top. So I don't mind getting my plate, my decorative plate, covered in powdered sugar, but if you want a clean looking plate without any decorative powder on it, you could put wax paper under the cake and then remove it once you add the powdered sugar. So you'll need about 1/3 of a cup because we want a thick layer of powdered sugar, and you're just gonna sprinkle it over the top. Again, it's a thick layer. We want it covered because this is technically the only decoration that's gonna be on this cake. So we want it to really, really white. You could also add some sugared cranberries to the center if you wanted to. Just add a pile of them if you're looking for that really pretty, some other color to the top. You could certainly do that. But white's traditional. All right, there you are, our blanketed white top of our Greek New Year's cake. All right, let's take a slice out of this cake and let's see what the inside looks like. Now, I am intentionally not cutting where the coin is because we are going to gift this cake to some friends who have kids, and I want them to be able to find the coin. So I'm just going to take out a little sliver. In fact, the coin, I lifted up the plate because it's a glass plate. I can see the coin is over here somewhere. So I'm pretty sure I didn't cut into that. So let's see what the inside looks like. Woo, look at that tall piece of cake. It's beautiful. All right, let's look at the inside of the actual cake. I like this cake because it's just so tall. And you know, it is that definite cross between a bread and a cake. Notice how it's very soft. It's not dry like you would think of as bread. So it's moist, sort of like a cake. And the layer of powdered sugar is pretty on top too. Scott's joining us for our cake. Hey, Scott.
Hi.
Are you feeling lucky?
4-leaf clover.
There you go, that's you, right? Well, let's see if you are. So we're having a Greek traditional New Year's cake called Vasilopita in honor of Saint Basil. So for you guys at home, if you want to cut the cake, this is how you do it. This is how you get your entire family in on the fun. So before you actually cut a slice out, you would make a cross in the cake. You just do a slice there and then crossways. So it just looks like a cross. That's all you're doing. And it's supposed to represent blessings for your home for the year. Okay, once you've made the cross, then one member of your family, me in this case, you will slice up enough pieces for each person in your home to have a slice. No one's allowed to look at the slice. People line up from the oldest to the youngest, and then you divvy out the slices in that order. Once everybody has a piece of cake, then the person who actually cut all the slices can say, go ahead and look. So then everybody looks in their cake and see if they can find a coin. That's you. Do you want to look, see if you have a coin?
Do I need to cut it up and...
And that's what the kids would do. If you have kids, they're going to want to dig into the cake and find the coin. But there's only one coin, so only one person is likely going to have it. But I'm going to go ahead and save Scott the suspense. He doesn't have the coin, because remember we cut it earlier? The coin's over here, so he's not going to get it. But for purposes of doing this for your family, that's how you can make a game out of it. And then whoever has the coin, then you celebrate the winner. The winner is lucky for the whole year. And then everybody digs in and takes a bite of their cake and enjoy it. So Scott, that's what you're gonna do. Go ahead and take a bite and let's tell him what it tastes like. So you guys can see him cutting the cake. Notice how it's sturdy, but then again, it's not quite as soft and moist as a cake, so it's like that cross between the bread and the cake.
It tastes like a really dense orange cake, so kind of like a pound cake with that orange flavoring. I like the orange flavor, and it's kind of unexpected when you take a bite. It's not like an overwhelming amount of orange, but it's an orange flavored pound cake is kind of how I would think of it.
Now there's not a lot of it, but there is nutmeg in it. Can you taste that at all?
A little bit. It's not the primary flavor that I tasted.
Good. It's meant to be nuanced. The nutmeg differentiates this cake from, say, a standard pound cake or maybe a lot of other cakes. So it brings in the holiday flavors that we're still in, that we're sort of ending the season with, the nutmeg and the orange. In addition to the cake recipe in the link below the video, I will post a handout of the history and the directions for cutting the cake. If you decide to make it and give it away, you can print out my handout, give it to the recipients so they will understand the Greek tradition behind the cake and have fun cutting into it with their family members. So Scott, is this cake a keeper?
I like it. It's a nice change. We don't have this type of cake very often.
All right. Thanks for watching. Whether you give this cake a try or not, I wish a year of good luck and blessings for you and your loved ones. What a way to bring in the new year. Until next time, go bake the world.